chairman of the board, and I would like to introduce the rest of the board, or I would like to go around and let the board introduce themselves.
I'm Dr. Jerry, member at large.
Good evening, I am Dot Guthrie, Gastonia Township.
Catherine Roberts, Dallas Township.
Mark Upchurch, Cherryville Township.
Lee Dedman, Gastonia Township.
Thank you. Everyone here may not realize, but we've got a special occasion. Brookside is celebrating the 20th year anniversary of the school opening, and I think everyone here that is at Brookside currently is very proud. The school still looks very, very nice, and we do appreciate everyone letting us come here tonight or this evening for the Board of Education meeting. The doors opened in 1994 and 1995 school year. Since that time, thousands of children have received a quality education here at Brookside. This is a great school, and I know the parents and the teachers in the audience would agree that this is a wonderful school. We have a number of Brookside students here with us this evening, and we're going to get a special presentation, a music presentation to the board. But before we do that, I'd like to ask Destiny Chapman and Caleb Hall to come down front to present the colors, and then we're going to do the Pledge of Allegiance. And I'd like to ask everyone to stand at this time. Thank you, Destiny and Caleb. We appreciate you being here tonight. All right, you had to come back for just a second. But we do have a small token of appreciation. It's a flag to put on your lapel when you go out. And we do thank you both this evening. At this time, let's welcome the students of Miss Michelle Patton's first grade class for our special music presentation. We would like to give, yeah. Can we get them to come back? Can we get them to come back down for just a second? I would like to thank each and every one of you boys and girls for the presentation. I would have the same problem with mud puddles if I were at your age right now. But we have you a small token of appreciation. It's a Gaston County School pencil. So you go to bring it to school with you tomorrow and let everybody know that you got something special for singing tonight, okay? And we do thank you, and each one of you, thank you very much. And Miss Cherry is passing the pencils out at this time. Ms. Patton, we would like to thank you very much too. We would like, as a board, we would like to thank Brookside Elementary Principal. Is Jill Payne here? Has she got here yet?
No, sir.
Okay, I'll think she's running a little behind. But we also would like to thank Assistant Principal Chelsea Barnes. Would you please stand?
I think she's still helping get the children.
Okay, well, I'm 0 for 2. We'll give her a minute, let her get everybody out, and then we'll recognize them. I also would like to thank the entire Brookside staff. We do appreciate this. This is something that we're going to try to do a little more often, to go out to some of our elementary, middle, and high school. So we do appreciate everything that everybody has done. Ms. Barnes, we would like to thank you personally. Thank you for all your help and allowing us to come. Thank you very much. The entire board appreciates it. Thank you.
And for choosing this room.
Yes, and for choosing the library, because that's very, very, very close to Ms. Dott's heart. At this time, we would like to adopt the agenda. I think everyone's got a copy of it. If you would take a minute to look at it, and I will need that in the form of a motion before we get started.
Mr. Woods,
Yes, Ms. Cherry?
make a motion that we approve.
Okay, I have a motion. Do I have a second? Mr. Upchurch has seconded. Any discussion on the agenda? All in favor? Okay, that is unanimous. Mr. Booker, the next item is a classroom a moment elementary.
Yes, sir. Members of the board, you will recall that we were very fortunate to have Catherine Plesnick selected to be one of the governor's advisors for the state of North Carolina. And we wanted her to come forward tonight and just talk about her work, and Mr. Cook is going to do a formal introduction.
Good evening, Chairman Lutz, board members, and Superintendent Booker. As we celebrate Teacher Appreciation Week, it is an honor and a privilege to highlight two outstanding exemplary teachers to you this evening. So many things that we could say about these ladies. Both of these outstanding educators are risk takers, innovators, extremely intelligent, dedicated, hardworking, and most importantly, committed to children. You may recall recognizing these teacher leaders for the special recognitions they received over the past year, but tonight we're going to share a little bit more about each one, and they're going to present to you. Our first presenter, I'd love to be able to say this off the top of my head, but too many accolades to give to them. Our first presenter is Ms. Catherine Plesnick. Ms. Plesnick is a Title I literacy teacher at Carr Elementary. She's certified to teach grades K through 6 and grades K through 12 in reading. She has a Master's of Science in Elementary Education from Pfeiffer University, and she's nationally board certified. Ms. Plesnick has served as Carr's Teacher of the Year, Star Teacher, and the Key Outstanding Educator for 13-14. Ms. Plesnick was accepted into Pathway 2 of the Governor's Teachers Network in June 2014. She has spent the past year focusing on instructional practices, which she's going to share with you this evening. So please join me in recognizing and highlighting Ms. Plesnick to the podium, please.
Good evening. I'm so happy this evening to have the opportunity to provide a summary of the Governor's Teachers Network and to share some information about how this initiative can positively impact the achievement of the students in Gaston County schools. The Governor's Teachers Network is a professional learning community of 450 educators from across the state who have been partnering with professionals from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction to create professional development and instructional resources for teachers in North Carolina. The purpose for creating these resources is to promote best practices statewide in grades K through 12. All of these resources will be housed within Home Base. Home Base is our statewide instructional improvement and student information system. I was honored to have the opportunity to represent Gaston County Schools in the Governor's Teachers Network for the 2014-2015 school year. The Governor's Teachers Network has two pathways. Pathway 1 has been creating professional development resources for Home Base, and Pathway 2 has been creating instructional and assessment resources. The goal is for all of these resources to be shared statewide beginning in August 2015. As a member of Pathway 2, I have been creating literacy instructional resources. I've been collaborating with consultants from the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction's English Language Arts Division, their Digital Teaching and Learning Division, and their Universal Design for Learning Division to create these literacy resources. My literacy resources have been focused on targeting the key comprehension skills and strategies that primary students need to learn. These literacy resources were really created to target foundational skills and strategies. Some of my literacy units focus on teaching students how to identify and apply key details in text, to ask and answer questions, retell in sequence, or describe narrative elements. And the children's books used within my resources are all high-quality literary and informational texts, such as A Green, Green Garden by Mercer Meyer or Frog and Toad All Year by Arnold LaBelle. Content area standards as well as informational and technology standards have been integrated within these literacy units, lesson plans, resources, and assessment items. And all of the resources are aligned to the North Carolina standards, which of course we know is key because this connection to the standards is one of the #1 predictors of student success on standardized achievement tests. These literacy resources can positively impact the achievement of students in Gaston County because they focus on teaching reading comprehension in the primary grades. Just as there are foundational skills for teaching students how to fluently read connected text, so too are there foundational skills for teaching reading comprehension. And a core English language arts curriculum that focuses on these comprehension skills in the primary grades can help reduce the number of students who require strategic literacy support in the upper grades. Grades K through 2 students should be learning to read while simultaneously learning through their reading. And my literacy resources can also support the implementation of best practices in the primary grades because all of the resources are aligned to 4 key best practices: a balanced curriculum, an integrated curriculum, differentiation, and of course, proactive learning opportunities for all students. The Governor's Teachers Network project is ending this May, and all of the instructional and professional development resources will be available beginning in August. And I'm excited to be able to share all of these resources within our district and promote their use to help accelerate the achievement of all of our students. Thank you for listening, and thank you for everything that you do for the staff and students in Gaston County Schools.
Board members and Superintendent Booker, several of the instructional folks had a chance early in the year to go to a training on SchoolNet and some other resources. Let me tell you tonight that those resources are better today because of folks like Ms. Plesnick and the work that she's done this year. So it's really an improved opportunity, and we're excited that she's been involved in this project. So I just wanted to highlight that. Our second presenter is Ms. Bianca Yavelek. She's a science teacher at Ashbrook High School. Ms. Yavelak has a degree in microbiology from Virginia Tech. She came to teaching from a job in research lab. Ms. Yavelak has taught 15 different science courses ranging from environmental science to AP physics. Every high school principal's dream teacher. For the past 7 years, she's been a member of the Gaston Regional Science and Engineering Fair leadership team and has had students to compete on the regional, state, and international levels. She's been recognized as Ashbrook's Teacher of the Year, Star Teacher, and as Charlotte Arts and Sciences Council Cato Award for Excellence in Teaching, one of only 6. This award recognizes creative teaching methods. Ms. Yavelak will share with you this evening some of her creative instructional practices in a blended classroom. Please again join me in recognizing and welcoming Ms. Yavelak to the podium.
Good evening. I am not good at a podium, so I'm going to try my best to stand still. I am happy to be here to talk to you this evening about my particular method, my particular style of teaching and how it affects my classroom and my students over the last 10 years. I love this quote. This quote is actually, this quote is actually from a children's science book author, and she passed away several years ago at the age of 95, and this is just, for me, I think kind of the way that I view my kids, even though my kids are bigger than me usually, but this is the way that I view them. I want to be able to kind of open up that curiosity that they have as a little kid and regrow it. I was lucky enough this past week to spend 2 days at the McCall Innovation Institute in Charlotte as part of the award for the Cato Excellence in Teaching Award. And this was hanging on the wall. And when I saw it, I took a picture of it, and I thought, this is what I need. I need to paint this in my classroom. I need them to see this. And this particular quote, if you can, it's kind of hard to see on the screen. It says, "Creativity is inventing, experimenting, growing, taking risks, breaking rules, making mistakes, and having fun." And I really want to push that with my students, and I want them to see that the things that happen in our classroom are applicable way beyond the walls of Ashbrook and past that. And science isn't necessarily all about, test scores and bubbles, and I want them to see the applications. So I do teach on a flipped model. It's more of a blended model. I've kind of modified it over the years to fit for me because I do teach so many different classes. This year, I am actually teaching 6 different preps. I have 3 first semester, 3 second semester. So I had to modify from day to day kind of everything I did. For me, it worked really well to bring in some of the AP requirements. I teach so many AP classes, and one of the things that is difficult for us as AP teachers is that we only get a semester. And so the AP curriculum is really written for an entire school year. And so we had to fit it into a very few amount of weeks. And so I kind of developed this technique of flipping and kind of blending together my classroom. And some of the things that this allowed me to do was I run an almost completely paperless classroom. We were able to go the entire first semester, and I think I used 100 copies for 3 classes in an entire semester. And most of those were beginning of the year forms that mom had to fill out and that kind of thing. So we do a lot of project-based things. We do a lot of activities. I don't know if I can show you this. One of the things that the flipped classroom lends for me is that my students spend a lot of their time in my classroom doing things, which does not leave time for lecture. I haven't given a full in-class lecture in about 3 years. So what they do is they go home and they watch the lecture on this, hopefully this will play. So this is one that they watched actually a couple days ago. So it's actually me talking through the content. It's about a 10-minute lecture. I have a 90-minute normal classroom discussion in about 10 or 12 minutes. And they can go home, they get all of the basic information. You don't have to play it all because they really don't want to hear me talk to you. Okay. But there are, if you were to watch the whole thing, there are pictures and there's information and there's definitions and there's examples and they get all of what they would normally get from a lecture in that small amount of time, which allows me to do fun things in my classroom. So they're hard to see, but there are pictures up here of field trips and roller coaster building and inquiry lessons and design challenges. We work with 5th grade students at a local elementary school. My kids have to be ready for anything, and that's kind of what I want them to get out of the whole process. Is I want them to come in and see that science is kind of an organic, changing challenge every day, and so it's never the same. There's another slide of pictures. There's a science fair plug in there because, you know, that's kind of what I'm known for, so it's kind of hard to not put that in there. But I do have a lot of students compete in science fairs, but I have many more who just do it for the experience. And I have, you know, was lucky enough a couple years ago to be given permission to teach a research methods course, and so I have students every year who come into that class with the sole purpose of completing a semester-long research project. There's field trips. We took them to Discovery Place this year. On the bottom right, I actually work with the band director. We do a design project in physics where they have to build musical instruments, and so they actually have to go and listen to him talk about all the different musical instruments. There's pictures of them dancing in class. The slide before on the top right, that was an Easter egg hunt the day that we left before spring break because they came in and it was so pretty outside and they didn't, no kid wants to be there the day before spring break. So I figured the best way, and it was actually a test, the best way to give them the test was to hide the questions in Easter eggs. So that was what we did. We took them outside and they all had candy in them, so if they got them right, they got the candy, and you know. It was a nice way to end it. All of this kind of boils down to the fact that my particular teaching philosophy is that the students are more than just students. And I have a really hard time putting them in a box that's all the same. For me, they're not students. They're my children. And they will tell you that. I will fight for them, and you know, I go to bat for them, and I help them, and they cry to me, and they laugh with me, and we celebrate. But what I want them to see is that these kids are the next generation of leaders, and we have to foster that. And as some of them see me more than they see their own mothers, and so as their role model, as their adult person that they're with most of the time, I want them to be able to face challenges, and I want them to be able to make decisions and creatively solve a problem. I want them to be able to take everything they've learned and fit it all together and create something out of it. And so it's not just me. There was actually research done this last year. This was a survey that was done by employers, or a survey done of employers, and they rated the things that are the most important in a new college graduate. And the number one thing on that list was the ability to make decisions and solve problems. And the way that I've set my classroom up empowers students to be able to do that. And I have really pushed over the last 10 years to create an environment where my kids come in and they're so willing to kind of step outside of the box and take a risk and get messy and make a mistake and actually authentically learn something. And I feel like as a science teacher, that's my job. As a high school teacher that's preparing to, I was telling them, kick them out of the nest. Kick you out of the nest and see if you can make it. I find that they are ready, and they do succeed, and they do fly. I have a lot of kids taking AP exams the next 2 weeks, and I don't know that they feel like they're flying, but I have a lot more faith in them than they do. Thank you so much for allowing me to come and kind of share with you a snapshot, a very quick snapshot, of what it's like to be in my classroom. I hope that my kids will tell you that it's as much fun for them as it is for me. So, thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I don't have a question, but I do have a comment.
Okay.
I want to tell you that in your presentation, I saw rigor. I saw a very strong relationship that you've developed with your students, and I saw how relevant you made everything. So those 3 R's, years ago, they were so important to us. You have made them very important, and you have certainly provided excitement and creative learning in your classroom, and I understand why you were voted star teacher and all of the others. And we thank you. We know that this is Teacher Appreciation Week, and we want you to know that we appreciate the creativity that you bring to your classroom and the confidence that you instill in your children. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Chairman Lewis, can I make a
Yes,
comment?
Mr. Devon.
She
You're gonna
knows
ask me
I'd
to
like to
come
hire her if I could. Do you get any kickback from your other, feedback from your other teachers at Ashbrook? I mean, you would think that everybody would want to teach with your method. How you handle those teachers that look at you and go, she's just too young?
I'm not that young. I have, that's deceiving. No, I have had some naysayers in the past with my particular teaching style is maybe a little too free for some people. And I tell my students, I was lateral entry. I was never really trained to be a teacher. I was trained as a research scientist. And so my purpose and kind of my method for them is I teach them to think like scientists and not like students. And that's what I want for them. Even if they go on to be lawyers or politicians or writers or business people or anybody, the idea that they can look at something and break it down and really analyze what they're looking at is so important and it's such a vital skill.
Well, keep up the good work and get everybody on board.
I'm trying.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you.
These two teachers represent so many wonderful other teachers who are not with us tonight in Gaston County Schools who are doing an awesome, awesome job, and we celebrate and we recognize them. A fun fact about both of these teachers, Ms. Plesnick has a brother who teaches in Gaston County Schools, and I think it's already been pointed out that Mr. Dedman, Ms. Shavlik's husband, teaches in Gaston County Schools. So greatness, it's truly a family affair with both of these. Thank you for highlighting them.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda is school nutrition, and I'm going to ask Mr. Holler to come up, and Mr. Fields is going to be the presenter on this. And anytime we get a report from nutrition and Mr. Fields has to talk about lunch prices, it's always an eventful time. So go right ahead, Mr. Holler.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Superintendent Booker. Mr. Fields and two of his staff members are here also. I'd like to introduce them. Karen Barrier is here, and Christina Harley. They are two assistant directors that work with Mr. Fields in our school nutrition department. Mr. Fields is here for an annual report, an annual update, and without further ado, I'll turn this over to Frank.
Thank you, Mr. Holler. Members of the board, Superintendent Booker, and members of the cabinet. I asked Tom's permission to do this, so I could, so I can see the presentation while we present it. It's my pleasure to come before the board to give our annual update of operations in the school nutrition department, and just want to touch on some of the highlights and things that are going on, and then we'll give some information about meal prices for next year. As usual, we have new things every year in school nutrition. That is a part of the Healthy Hunger-Free Kids Act to update and improve the National School Lunch and School Breakfast program. So this year we've seen a new menu and a new meal pattern, again, with 100% whole grains and whole grain rich foods in all categories, breakfast and lunch. Sodium restrictions were implemented, and you'll note up there it does say that they were suspended and that waivers were given on the whole grain rich requirements for next year. What we have seen is that, and you've probably heard nationally, there's some pushback on not only do we need to provide good fuel for our kids and good nutrition, but we also need to have foods that they enjoy and that are acceptable, that they will eat, and so that they have the energy to perform in the classroom. So that is two things that we did implement, and they will be held at present levels and actually backing off the whole grain rich requirement. Also, the mandatory fruit or vegetable requirement for breakfast and lunch is being reconsidered, but doesn't indicate right now that that's probably going to be changed. Additionally, on top of that, we did smart snacks, which is we have nutritional requirements for items that are sold as extras. That is both in the cafeteria and in the school setting in general. There was certainly a decrease in participation because of availability of product. It really hit demand very strong, and I don't think our industry partners were quite ready to meet that demand, so we weren't able to get the products we needed. We've seen that rebound, but it certainly has impacted us somewhat for the first part of the year, not being able to have those extras that we normally have. And then, of course, the smart snacks in the schools were just rolled out in February in cooperation with the principals and the PLT, and they seem to be adapting to that as well. Additionally, we do some promotions. National School Lunch Hero Day was May 1st on Friday, and we consider all of our cafeteria workers, particularly our managers, to be real heroes because they do the impossible every day. They make great meals, they serve lots of kids in a short amount of time, and they're always friendly and a part of the positive experience every day for our kids. This is also National School Nutrition Employee Week, and we're honoring our staff and encouraging them. I'm going to have our awards banquet on the 14th, and that will be the theme of our banquet is school nutrition heroes. And so we'll all be dressed like superheroes that night. I think you'll really enjoy it. Also, we're doing our summer feeding program. We're already gearing that up. Last year we did 10 schools and over 40 community sites. We're seeing the same levels, if not more, as we're signing up at this point. And so we anticipate, again, 2,500 meals or so a day during the summertime over a 7-week period. We think it's really important that we continue to serve our children in the summer. We have so many needy in Gaston County, and they certainly need our attention and support during the summer as well as the school year. Some of our positives, you're all aware we rolled out universal free breakfast and lunch in 21 schools, and we've seen an increase in participation in those schools. We've seen 90% lunch participation and over 50% breakfast participation. We're extremely pleased with that. We also have seen the food shortages and in response by industry to get the whole grain items, the reduced sodium items finally in the pipeline. And so we have seen a leveling out of supply and expense as the year has progressed. And we're also seeing greater acceptance by the new meal pattern, and the menu as kids become more accustomed to adjusting their taste to lower sodium levels, whole grain breadings, things of that nature. So we feel like that if we continue to give it attention and look for the details of what kids like, that we'll see participation rebound even more. We do like to update the board on charged meals. This has been something that is an ongoing challenge for all school districts, but in Gaston County, I think we've continued to set the pace in the area and in the state. We have great cooperation with our principals and school partners so that our charge levels are significantly lower than almost all of our neighbors in the counties around us. And it's really about the same where it was last year in the $20,000 to $22,000 level. We do have 32,000 kids, so there's going to naturally be some charging. We always err on making sure that children get something to eat, and we work with principals to make sure that we're doing all we can as the year ends to collect what we can. So some of our challenges have been, of course, loss of revenue due to inclement weather, and that's just something that we know that's a part of how our culture and our system works. So we're able to anticipate that. There's been some increases in food costs this year, even over and above what we anticipated with bids from last year. Some products just weren't available, And so we've had to go to more expensive items, and we've served a lot more fresh fruits and vegetables. We've seen our fresh produce purchases probably get up to $1 million this year. 5 years ago, that was $200,000. So we've had a real emphasis in freshness and in fresh foods, but there's a cost to that. So again, we're trying to balance that out. And then the other real challenge is paid lunch equity, which we'll touch on a little bit more about meal prices for next year. It is a requirement by the USDA that we implement this schedule. So how are we doing for lunch? How's our participation? Well, a large majority of our children, of course, last year it was over 61% qualified for free or reduced price meals. This year with CEP, we've seen that number rise to almost 67% because you were able to capture a lot of students in these 21 schools who were very close to qualifying but didn't qualify in the past. Now, as being part of a universal free breakfast and lunch program, they are a part of that free percentage. So it's around 67% and about 70% of all meals served. There's a small category of reduced price meals, and then, of course, our full pay. And breakfast, again, we see the almost 80 to 85% of our breakfast are served to children that are eligible for free meals, which is a good thing. But we would like to work with principals, and we've got some initiatives and some one-on-ones going back and forth with principals, particularly in elementary schools, to see what we can do to make sure that all kids are eating breakfast either before they come to school or when they get to school. I think breakfast is the best way to get a kid ready to start learning for the day. So how do we look to improve the experience that we provide? We look to our customers, and let me emphasize that word customers. We consider every child to be our customer. We want them to have the same experience that you would have if you went to a restaurant in Gaston County, Charlotte, anywhere else. You're expected to be served good food, on time, in a friendly manner, in a good, safe, sanitary place. We work really hard to see that that happens. Sometimes we may slip a little bit, but we're always looking at our procedures and our offerings, and we get feedback. We do a food show where we get feedback from parents and students and the community. We meet with principals. We listen to what they say. We also share information with other programs around the state, and we analyze the products that we serve, and we see what's going popular, what's not, and we try to make adjustments therein. And we've got some great things going on too. We're doing a fresh fruit and vegetable program, snacks at least 3 times a week in 6 elementary schools. That's going to expand to 10 schools next year. We're doing 10 school gardens in partnership with Food Corps, and we have tasting events where we buy North Carolina produce, and Food Corps volunteers help us allow children to taste the products, even grow the products in some cases, and then we will purchase commercially the same products and serve them in the lunchroom a week later, and if possible, locally. And we do quite a bit more through our central kitchen as we're developing some new production techniques, and we're doing theme-based promotions. And we're going to try to do that monthly next year, something to break the monotony of that menu cycle. And that's something that we're really looking at to jazz things up a little. And we work very closely with the North Carolina Department of Agriculture, purchasing North Carolina grown produce. We have a goal of 10% being locally grown. That's a moving target, what locally is, but I consider if it's in the state of North Carolina or with a 200-mile radius, that's considered local. It's not coming from California or Florida. It's in our region. And we're working, of course, with Dr. Balknight's department, Student Services, to meld our wellness programs and healthy, active children programs along with healthy eating programs. We think that's a good collaborative work that we're doing, and it's a part of the whole picture for our kids. Before we take any questions, I do want to touch on meal prices. I mentioned paid lunch equity. Paid lunch equity is a requirement in the National School Lunch Program and Healthy Hunger Free Kids Act that the paid meal price keep pace with the reimbursement for free meals. The highest reimbursement, the highest revenue we receive for any meal is for a free lunch. Last year, or I think this year, it was around $3.06. We will see that pegged to inflation and move up a little bit next year. We get some reimbursement, some subsidy for a paid lunch, around 28 cents. But if you add that 28 cents to the paid lunch price, which for us is an average of $2.65, I think, this year, it's still below that free price. So the USDA requires us to continue to move that number up by 10 cents a year until we catch the free price. We've expressed both at a state level and through our professional organization that that's difficult because we're starting to feel like we're getting fatigue of meal price increases, and it's diminishing returns at some point. Congress is reauthorizing the bill, the program, as we speak. It'll probably be another year before the law actually comes before the full body, but we think that that's going to be one of the things that they'll look at, but we don't have relief for that. So as an information item, we will be requesting a 10-cent increase on paid lunch for next year, and also a 25-cent increase for adult meals so that they remain above the level of the cost to produce a meal, which is also required.
Mr. Field,
Yes.
what is the price of lunch right now for a student?
Middle school and high school, it's $2.60, and for elementary school, it's $2.50. Next year, we would anticipate $2.70 in secondary levels and $2.60 in the primary levels.
And what is it for an adult?
The adult is $3.50 this year. Next year it would be $3.75. And of course, a la carte purchases are an option for adults. They don't have to get a full meal. They can pick and choose if they so desire.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lutz.
Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda, I think Mr. Bill Cook will come up and introduce your presenter.
Chairman Lutz, board members, and Superintendent Booker, tonight the curriculum and instruction team would like to provide you with an overview and an update of our work on Title I, II, III career and technical education program plans. These plans, these plans are written and then submitted in order for our school system to be eligible to receive federal grants to support our students in each of these areas. We'd also like to present to you an update on the annual AIG plan for 2013-2016. Each of our area directors will come and provide you with an overview of the program. Dr. Shelley Bullard, Director of Title I, will come and present first. She'll present the Title I and Title II. Last year, the state made a change to combine both of those applications, so she'll present both of those tonight. Then Ms. Risa Hoyle, who's the Director of AIG, World Languages, and Title III, will come and present the AIG and the Title III. Then Mr. Brett Buchanan, Director of CTE, will present the Career and Technical Education plan to you. Each one of them will pause after their presentation to answer any questions that you may have. Dr. Shelley Bullard.
Good evening, Chairman Lutz, members of the board, Superintendent Booker. I am Shelley Bullard, Director of Title I, and I appreciate you allowing us to come tonight to share some information with you about what we do. Title I and Title II are grants that are written in the same application. Title I is federal funding for our impoverished students and our impoverished schools, and it is used to provide additional support to help students and meet their academic needs. Title II is funding to support teacher quality, teacher retention, and for professional development. And I will be talking about Title I first, and then we'll move into Title II. Both of these grants are written to, the number one thing that we do is to support the Gaston County Schools strategic plan. That's first and foremost. For Title I, the number of low-income public school students that Title I will serve for next year is 10,474 students. We will have 24 schools that will be served, 19 elementary and 5 middle schools. That is one less than we had this year with the closing of Ryan, but those students at those schools will be supported with Title I in their receiving schools. For the usage of our Title I funds that we have, we employ 24 instructional facilitators. That is one at every Title I school. We have 19 literacy teachers. That is one at every Title I elementary school. And then funding is allocated to the schools, and they can do such things for additional staff, instructional materials, or they can purchase technology at the school level. So we move to Title II. Title II funding is for teacher quality, as I said earlier, teacher retainment and recruitment, and for professional development. Title II funds are used to support students at all schools, so not just the impoverished schools or the impoverished students. With these funds, we support curriculum facilitators, instructional technology facilitators, human resources support, and some professional development opportunities. Our activities for the coming year and our focus is going to be K-8 literacy and K-8 math. Those are the two things that we will be focusing on. Professional development, that will focus our building the teacher and administrative capacity, building their skill, and building their expertise. Questions about Title I or Title II?
Any questions? Boy, everybody must be really smart tonight.
Well, I'm glad. That's wonderful. Thank you for letting us be here tonight.
Thank you.
Good evening. Chairman Lutz, members of the board, Superintendent Booker, I'm Risa Hoyle, and I'm here to present updates about the Title III plan. Title III is part of the No Child Left Behind Act that authorizes funds for the English language learner acquisition programs. At this time, we have 1,522 limited English proficient students, and 72 of those are newcomers. Most of these students are served through pull-out programs at their schools, but they're all served or provided services based on their individual student needs. We currently have 26 different languages spoken in Gaston County schools, with the largest groups being Spanish, Vietnamese, Arabic, and Laotian. We use our ESL and Title I or Title III funds to employ all the positions of the following. We include 29 ESL teachers serving K-12 students. We employ an interpreter translator who is housed at the International Center, and she assists with school-related conferences, and also she serves as the liaison between contracted interpreters when we need interpreters for languages other than Spanish. We have 2 bilingual parent specialists that serve at our 2 highest population elementary schools to bridge the gaps between our non-English speaking families and the school system. We have an ESL lead teacher who provides support for the ESL and regular classroom teachers. We have bilingual parent liaison that works at the International Center, and she does a lot of intake work, working with families about any questions that they might have about our school system, including registration or just how schools work in our culture as opposed to the cultures they're used to. We employ 1 SIOP coach. SIOP stands for Sheltered Instruction Observation Protocol, and she provides instruction that helps teachers learn differentiation strategies to work with our students in the regular classrooms. We also provide funding for professional development and state training as necessary. Of course, our ESL priorities for the following year always include growing understanding about our ESL students, their needs, and we are looking to do that again this year. We hope to increase educator and administrator knowledge to address the diverse needs of English language learners. We also plan to continue to provide professional development for all teachers to help them assist with just knowing what to do with English language learners in the regular classroom. Do we have any questions about ESL or Title III?
You're right, I am a little bit. Ms. Old,
Yes, sir.
the testing, have they made any changes to that? In other words, when an ESL child comes in, they have to be tested in English even if they speak no English at all?
That is true. They are exempt from the reading test for a period of time, but they take everything else. They take math, they take biology, they take
So
whatever.
that could reflect some test scores might be lower because of that particular reason?
Absolutely, absolutely. They are allowed modifications that assist in some manners with that, but they still are responsible for taking the test. Yes, sir.
This has to do with the meat of the grant itself. No, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't have a clue. You answered it. I wanted to correct you on one thing. PSYOP stands for psychological operations, which is a smart word for mind
have that.
games, which means we're expanding the kids' educational knowledge through fun.
Well, I like how you think.
Title I, Title II, and Title III. What is the total amount of money for this past year that those three titles had funded in them? So is that an answer?
Collectively, I can tell you about Title III.
Okay. Title III.
Title III is in the neighborhood of $225,000 that is specific to that federal grant. ESL funds also come from the state,
Okay.
and that's an additional about $900,000.
Okay, and the other two? Is that a, and it's okay to say, we got to get it later. I'm just,
It's 8.8 million for Title I, and 1.1 for Title II.
okay. Did you get your answer? Mr. Devon asked me to ask that, so.
I knew that one.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. Any other questions?
Don't think so. Thank you.
All right, I'm also happy to be able to share the updates in regards to the AIG program as well. The interim review of our three-year plan that we are in the middle of, 2013 to 2016, shows that we are providing services for 3,220 AIG students. It is our goal to recognize, challenge, and nurture students with exceptional academic ability and intellectual potential. We also provide support for 507 composer students. Composer classes are offered at our Title I schools, and students in this program participate in pull-out classes that are designed to enhance creativity, critical thinking, and also problem-solving skills. We use AIG funds to fund 14 elementary AIG teaching positions that serve 32 elementary schools. We provide middle school instructional support, curriculum support, and resource support for our advanced language arts and advanced math classes in the middle school. And we use our funds to provide professional development to pay for certification of AP teachers and ongoing training for IB and honors teachers as well. The AIG department projected priorities are set to provide maximum support for our gifted learners. We plan to continue to monitor student performance, their growth, and the dropout data to ensure that we are making the growth with AIG students that we are expected to make with all students. We continue to work to increase AP offerings, also the participation and the proficiency of the students in those courses. We continue to support professional development initiatives to make sure that classroom teachers have the resources they need to provide differentiation for gifted learners in the regular classroom as well. Of course, as always, we examine service delivery to ensure that we are providing the maximum learning opportunities for our children. Any questions about AIG?
Mr. Howell?
Same question. Do you know the dollar amount? that
Yes,
we
sir,
have invested in
$1.6
AIG?
million from the state.
6.1 million.
1.6. 1.6.
I wasn't in the AIG
Close.
class. And then, follow-up question.
Yes, sir.
I think last year, was it last year or a year before that, we talked about especially AP.
Yes, sir.
The number of students that are taking AP classes versus the number of students that are taking AP tests versus the number of students that are being AP test successful. And I know part of that is the whole calendar law thing that we're fighting that was on the news this morning, and they don't, let's go past that. How are we looking at those numbers of the number of kids? Because I see sometimes kids are just taking AP classes for GPA. Some kids are taking AP classes just because their friend's doing it and they don't want to look like the one that is not the overachiever. And some are doing it because they really have an educational goal mindset. So the number of kids are taking it versus the number of kids taking the test versus the success of the test. Do you know those numbers?
I know a good many of those
Okay.
numbers. The preliminary numbers this year show that 3,080 students are actually sitting in AP classes. But that is a duplicate number because that same student might be taking 4 or 5 AP classes, so it's
Right.
the exact number. And that number is up from 3,004 last year. And of course, that's preliminary, so that's, we're not really exactly sure. And then the AP test, I can't give you that data for this year because they're currently testing. And while we probably could have told you how many registered, they're not all taking the test because we've already gotten emails today, what happens if we're sick or if we're making, some of the children are actually taking the classes but may or may not take the test. And we stand firm by the rigor in the class.
Right.
Just taking the class provides a benefit to students. I'm sorry, I may have left off part of your answer.
No, I'm thinking about AP when we're talking about this. I know I hear students say, I took an AP class and I'm doing terrible. And they might be making a D or C, where in an honors class they'd make an A or B. And I think some of that is the rigor and all that. But are we benefiting our kids? Are we frustrating them? And this maybe speaks more to counselors in that area by kind of help shaping them when they pick that AP class and saying, hey, look, I know we look at their overall record in high school and say, you're probably good in this honors class, but do we provide something for them in there? Because I know personally some students that get in the AP classes and they're not doing like they have in the past, and they get kind of frustrated with it. And truth is, they're learning because they're having to step up their game, but their grade doesn't reflect kind of who they've been over the years. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. So the answer to that question is there is a wide variety of things that go on. Yes, the counselors actually talk with the students. They'll have a conversation with them about what they're choosing to take for the next year. Counselors do a good job at explaining to them the level of rigor that they're getting themselves into. Because while courses are self-select, just because they all fit into your schedule may or may not be a good idea for you to take all of those courses. So that is a counselor conversation that goes on with the students. Once they're in the class, then I would hope that would be something that the teachers would provide the support to help them be successful.
Right. And do you look at any of that data and say, man, we got AP chemistry across the board in Gaston County, and we got 46% of our population that is making a C or C minus. Do you kind of look at the data to see where the kids across the county are in those AP classes, or is that not a
I have not
measurable?
looked at that data about what is going on in the instructional classroom. We do look at the data to see what the percentage passing is of the students who take the AP exam.
Right.
But looking at the data per course by grade level, I do not. Something someone does? Okay, yeah, and he's speaking, the College Board syllabus dictates what has to be taught in the course and at the level that we would teach that
Right.
rigor. So, they also have to present their grading policy and all those types of information. But as far as spending time looking at what's going on in each individual classrooms, that is not something that I do.
Yeah, I'm just curious if we looked at the data, said 2015, 14, 15, AP chemistry, how many students in there made A's, how many made B's, how many made C's, how many maybe didn't make that, and kind of look at that, not specifically at a teacher and how they're teaching, but as a general basis and say, look, a lot of our kids are going to AP classes and they're just blowing it out of the water, or they're getting blown out of the water.
It's a very valid question, and I can certainly look into that. And we can actually look at that data. I think we have access to that. It's just not something that I've done in the past. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay.
Thank
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, Chairman Lutz, members of the Board of Education, Superintendent Booker. My name is Brett Buchanan. I'm the Career and Technical Education Director for Gaston County Schools. I'm here today to present the Local Planning System Grant. This grant is an educational strategic plan for CTE to follow that allows us to receive federal funds to be used in Gaston County School CTE programs. Before I discuss how the local planning system grant funds were used for the current school year, I'd like to give you some Gaston County Schools CTE facts for informational purposes. For the 2014-2015 school year, we had approximately 4,900 middle school students enroll in a CTE course, approximately 6,800 high school students enroll in a CTE course. That equated to approximately 70% of secondary education students enrolling in a CTE course. We offered 99 different CTE programs that were taught by 136 CTE teachers. We offer 14 of the 16 career clusters for students to take courses in. we offer 10 CTE credentialing programs. And the credential is just an industry-recognized certificate that a student can earn, take with them beyond graduation, and present to local business partners. And the most impressive fact for CTE is the 97% CTE concentrator graduation rate. Keep in mind that NCDPI's benchmark for Gaston County schools for this particular metric was 88.6. So for students that took a 4-course CTE concentration in one of the 14 career clusters, and one of those courses being a level 2 completer course, 97% of students in Gaston County schools graduated. Moving on to the usage of the federal grant funds in the current school year for CTE. These funds were used for technology upgrades and expansions, CTE-specific professional development for our current and new CTE teachers. These funds were also used for program enhancement and upgrades, and our career and technical student organizations. Looking into the 15-16 school year, the use of these funds will be used to increase technology access for all CTE teachers, provide professional development support to all CTE teachers in their specific content area. These funds will also be used to continue to provide program enhancements and upgrades. This would include consumable items that our students use in our CTE courses. And these funds will be used to increase student participation in the career and technical student organizations. And this would include marketing and recruitment in all of our CTSOs in all of our schools. Are there any questions for me?
Mr. Howe?
I'm gonna leave y'all alone in a minute. Federal grant, do you know what we're spending dollar-wise in that?
This year we received approximately $417,000.
And then the other question is, somebody, I guess would have an answer. How often do we evaluate the CTE classes that we're offering with the money that we're getting to say, and I'm gonna pick on this particular CTE course, but it doesn't mean that I'm for or against it. Do we say, okay, let's take out electrical trades at Ashbrook and let's put in PLC controls, or let's take out electrical trades and let's put in CNC programming, or let's take this out and let's put in this, based on what, one, I think Gaston County needs, from what we're hearing within economic development, industry within Gaston County, Freightliner, people like that, or two, what the community college is saying, hey, we have a ton of people coming looking for this skill level from us. Do we evaluate what we do versus like bricklaying and electrical trades, and I'm trying to hit them all so they don't think I'm picking on them, versus maybe bringing that in, because I know one of the things you said on this grant was technology and expansion. So do we look at that and say, maybe it's time to get rid of this and not just do it the way we've always done it, the way we cut the ham?
We do yearly evaluate our programs, and first we'll listen to our business industry partners when I meet with them. We'll look at NC Works Online, we'll look at enrollment numbers, and we'll look at funding overall. And the funding is, when we look at funding and I guess divvying it up, all these metrics come into play. So it's, we do look at these yearly and evaluate, what you're asking about on these particular metrics. It's definitely not cut and dry, but there are a lot of things to evaluate.
Right. Because I know sometimes we just look for space to add a CT, like let's build a CT high school and we can add them all. Maybe sometimes we just got to clear out a spot and from something that we have that's maybe not as beneficial to the community. So I'm just curious. Thank you.
I have one.
Yes, sir.
How do you determine, and it's very close to Mr. House, but I want you to get more specific. How do you determine what criteria you use when you're discontinuing a program at a school, whether it be a middle school or a high school?
It really reflects back to how I answered the previous question. You look at enrollment numbers. We'll look at like I said, NC Works Online, just to see what careers are in demand at this point in time, technology.
Which ones did we discontinue last year anywhere?
I don't know that we discontinued any last year that I can recall. Of course, I would have to reflect back that and get an exact answer to you. But right now, I do not think that we did discontinue any. Yes, sir.
To go back to y'all, their question, I don't think it was last year or year before at Cherryville High School. It goes back to they discontinued automotive to put in a gaming device because there was, well, number one, Carolina Freight's not there anymore, so there's not that connection there. Yeah, it depends on the interest of the students. And then Mr. Lutz might can answer this. It's been, 5, 6 years ago, we reevaluated the 14 or the 16 of the different pathways there. And some of them went, I think, cosmetology went this way, and then we added more technology. So then the board looked at that itself.
Yes, Mr. Howell.
I know one of the matrix you said you use is enrollment into a class. Some of the CTE teachers I talked to, either before I was on the board and I was subbing in classes, a couple of those were CTE, they said that a lot of times when I ask them, I'll give you a great for instance, the other day at the partnership, I was asking one of the CTE trays, and I just won't say which one, how many kids do you have in your class that want to be there and how many got dumped there? And I don't mean that in a bad sense, but they'll say, the first thing they ask is how many of you signed up for this class? Half the class will raise their hand, and half of them were put in that class. And so I'm assuming that we take into account those numbers of students that maybe didn't sign up for an extra class that semester, and we had to put them somewhere, and so they got put in automotive or electrical trades or brick mason or whatever. So I think that's important for us to know as a board is, out of that attendance in that classroom, how many of those are signed up because they say, man, I cannot wait to learn how to wire my house, and how many are saying, I'm going to learn this anyways. So,
I agree, but, as an ex-CTE teacher for the past 15 years, I experienced that, but I looked at it as a challenge to take this student and get them excited, show them something to learn, something that they could value, and, would help them beyond high school. Maybe they didn't come in there with, that particular goal in mind, but, I looked at it as an opportunity, just get your hooks into these students and, teach them something, and they may turn out, that was their passion. They just didn't know it. It took me to show it to them.
Right, no, I saw Mr. Carson do that at Ashbrook in electrical trade many times, but I'm just saying from a standpoint of what's a valuable class for our school, and if we're doing it based on enrollment numbers, then sometimes that might be a little skewed.
I agree. Any other questions?
Any other questions? No, I don't think so. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Mr. Howell, one other point to your question or comments or statements is, too, I think to keep in mind that 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds sometimes don't take those schedules very seriously. And so signing up for what they think they won't get, is something that we always try to encourage to. So we've gone through that recently, just trying to make sure and talking to counselors and teachers and parents, be sure that you are, you're serious when you put that down as an alternate, because it may end up on your schedule. So that's another just piece of that age, and certainly trying to educate them is another piece of that. And I think to your point about AIG, or to AP, we've shined the spotlight on AP probably more this year than we ever have just across the state, because those exams are free. So I would say your points are well taken, and we need to continue looking at that data, every piece of it that we can get, to make sure, because many students may, now that they don't have that invested interest of having to pay for the exam, may also take that less likely. And so we really want to increase our proficiency rate as well as participation. That's a focus of Mr. Booker and the district, so we're really going to be looking at those numbers very carefully. So just want to make those 2 points. Thank you.
Just one more thing.
Yes, sir.
Just as a matter of interest, a lot of national publications, you have to have X number of AP classes to be gold sealed, first place. Some of our high schools, I don't know if you've noticed, some in other counties have become gold seal in high magazines, and we have a few that would qualify, but the only reason they don't is because they didn't have enough AP classes being taught. So, and I'm like Mr. Howell, AP is not for everybody. I do think we need to be strong with vocational. And if you ever need a plumber at 11:30 at night, you would wish you'd learn how to change those little floats on that commode. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir. I think hopefully you've gotten a great idea, an overview of each of these plans. Each of these plans requires a great deal of hard work, time, data collection, and just hours. However, every minute, every hour, every piece of paper is worth it if we can secure the resources of these grants to make sure that our students are benefiting from them. So over the next 2 weeks, I'm going to leave you with a folder with each of the plans tonight that highlights some of those things that we're going over and maybe some of the things that might not have been mentioned. So if you have any questions over the next 2 weeks, please don't hesitate to reach out to the level directors or myself so that we can assist, because we'll be bringing these back for approval at a later board meeting. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I would like to just add that while it appeared to be quiet on the left side, on your left side, we were presented with that information by the directors in our C&I committee meeting about 4:45, so
We will
were given
make
the
a note of
information.
that.
That's why we were quiet on this side.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. The next item on the agenda, we have our attorney, Ms. McGraw, is going to give some information on board policy updates.
Thank you, Chairman Lutz and members of the board. The final item on your agenda this evening is an information item. You will not be asked to take action tonight on this item. Earlier this evening, I asked your board's clerk, Ms. Lovato, to email you policy updates. You'll recall that we use board updates mainly to mean a tune-up for our Board of Education policies. Many of these policy changes or updates that come before you this time come as a result of changes in the law caused by the General Assembly action or changes in the State Board of Education, typically also caused by changes in the law. We have provided you with a draft of the policy which we are recommending for approval. We also included a line item policy to show you where those changes are being recommended. We commend them to you over the next couple of weeks. They will come back before you at your May 18th regular board session for approval. Should you have questions about some of those changes between now and then, please don't hesitate to call me. And if we need to get the appropriate staff member involved, we will do that. Because let me just remind you a little bit about the process that's taken place to bring these items before you this evening. Typically what happens is the General Assembly takes action. There's a law change, which necessitates a State Board of Education policy change. Those are typically, we're alerted to those through a service that we use, Policies That Leave the Schools, which is a service provided by the School Boards Association, the North Carolina School Boards Association. So thankfully they submit to us what we consider to be model policies that have been looked at by their legal staff and that have more or less been agreed upon as the policies that will be used in many of the LEAs across North Carolina. When we receive those model policies, we hand them out to staff members, and your staff is here tonight, and they have reviewed each of the policies that come before you for changes. You know that Ms. Matson has looked at the technology and accountability, and Mr. Holler has looked at school safety and nutrition, or he's had Mr. Phillips look at the nutrition. Dr. Balknight's looked at those with student services and now athletics. Dr. Abernathy's looked at our attendance policy. Dr. Tutterow has looked at those personnel policy changes. And Mr. Cook will have looked at curriculum and instruction policies. And Mr. Hoskins has reviewed any policy changes. I was trying to remember if I left out. Any policy changes that might have had to do with our finance department. I say all of that to you to assure you that before these policies come to you, and ultimately you have say over your Board of Education policies, but before we bring them to you, they have been vetted by your cabinet, by the staff, and by others that staff might have felt needed to see those policy changes. Sometimes that meant bringing principals on board to take a look at them. Sometimes it meant bringing other stakeholders or other standing committees. Dr. Abernathy has a standing attendance committee that she uses each year annually to review our attendance policy. Nonetheless, if you have questions about those changes, please don't hesitate to call me. We will talk about those, and again, we will involve whichever staff member we might need to involve to answer your question. You will also be interested to note that we will put these proposed changes on the webpage. Those have already been sent to Mr. Higgins, and he will have his staff put those on the website. They'll probably have it sometime tomorrow, so that anyone who is curious about how we are updating our policy can see that prior to your time of making decisions in a couple of weeks. So, having said that, we will leave them with you. If you have any trouble with the email, please don't hesitate to call me. We'll make sure that you get what you need in order to do what you need to do to make sure that you have good, sound Board of Education policies. That's it, Mr. Lewis. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. McCraw. The next item we don't have listed on the agenda, but I would like to recognize Mr. Booker, just to make sure he wants to make any comments he has.
One, Ms. Payne has joined us. Jill, thank you for hosting us tonight. We started this with teachers, and it's fitting that we end with teachers because it's been touched on lightly. This is National Teacher Appreciation Week. You are part of leading 1,900 educators who reach out every day and inspire students. You saw tonight what that would be like to be in a classroom. They do it by engaging them with thought-provoking lessons and trying to be innovative in what they do. But more than that, you saw they own those students. They appreciate and really value what they are as individuals and try to bring out all that they have. And so if you get a chance this week, stop by a school and just say thank you to a teacher. And for a lot of us, there's a teacher we get to go back and thank from our own education, because this is the week that we should really stop and recognize those. And I just ask that you all would consider doing that.
Thank you, Mr. Booker. Seeing no other comments, I will entertain a motion for adjournment. I have a motion from Ms. Cherry. Do I have a second? Second. Ms. Guthrie, any discussion? Seeing no discussion, all in favor? Unanimous.